I love dearly the old school Dead Rising games. Those old games where you're playing as Frank West running through a mall, and it's just like pure escapist fun and stupidity, where you create like a weapon that's just a lawnmower hat and you put it on a zombie's head and it just through the zombie. Stuff like that. The Dead Rising franchise has been kind of ignored for a while because Dead Rising 4 released in like 2016, I think, 2016. And it was kind of rubbish. So they haven't really done anything with it. But Capcom just made an announcement with regard to the 2004 masterpiece that was Dead Rising. They just did. Experience this with me.
Say, buddy, you mentioned something about research for a story. Frank West.
Remember that name, because the whole world's gonna know it in 3 days.
Yeah. What? It's like a Giga remaster. They're not saying remake. So it's going to play just like the original, presumably. But they are doing that. And they say in 2024. So probably by the end of this year, maybe around Halloween. Looks like it's a different voice actor. Which I don't know why they would need to do that. Must be rights or paperwork, something legal related. But still, I'm kind of down for that. Because I love the original. The original, I remember playing like early high school, going over to friends' places, and we would just stay up all night playing this. It was one of the games that we would play like during those sleepovers, but it was just us like staying up all night trying to play video games. And it was awesome. I remember getting the big carton of Goldfish, the extra cheesy kind. And then you go and you get a big gallon jug of chocolate milk. Not the True Moo. You got to get the store brand because it's thicker and tastier. You save money and it's better. And then you down Goldfish and chocolate milk. It will turn your insides into concrete and you will not be able to become regular for days, dare I say weeks, but it will be well worth it. I will tell you what, well worth it. Those are the days, man. I look back on it, I'm like, wow, I used to basically just consume plaster of Paris as a meal. Because that's basically what Goldfish and chocolate milk is. It solidifies. How I'm alive today, I don't know, but it was wonderful. No, Ceaseless Discharge is Taco Bell or Arby's. As I said earlier with the announcement of a remaster for the original Dead Rising coming by the end of this year, I'm a fan of Dead Rising. I like these games. I like how irreverent they were, how just outrageous they were. Found it really, really fun back in the day. But Dead Rising is one of those franchises that just got abused. Like it had so much potential. People loved it. And then they started giving it to teams that just frankly didn't really know what they were doing with the franchise or why the franchise was successful to begin with. And so they started doing things that were just not at all what they needed to do and actively upset the fan base. So they made a really generic game that upset the core fan base, and then they're surprised it didn't find any success. So in this video from 7 years ago from the one and only Krabby Cat, he breaks it down very, very well using clips of the actual devs, just showcasing their thought process. And it's genuinely baffling because you're like, how did anybody go along with this?
Take a look at this.
The whole Dead Rising franchise has been known for mayhem and just killing tons and tons and tons of zombies. And we've kind of upped the ante for Dead Rising 4.
Frank is back.
That's why we have our hashtag Frank's back.
Okay, Frank's back. Frank is back.
Frank is cooler, he's tougher, a little wiser, but he's still Frank.
Frank's mellowed with age now. He's 16 years older. He's 54. He's still Frank. But, you know, his sense of humor is better.
It'll be fine.
Better. Whenever I hear a director or a writer say that somebody's sense of humor is better, I always brace because I'm like, oh God.
You need to relax.
Yeah, she says before the screaming starts.
You messed with my camera again, right?
You're a quick one.
That's what she said.
But we don't want to force funny down people's throats. We want the gamer to decide what's funny and what's not.
We have some amazing voice acting in the game. You know, we think we've really captured what we really wanted Frank to be all along.
What are you doing?
Why I love Frank West?
It's that thing where like somebody's trying to be really funny and it just doesn't land. Like nothing is more unfunny than someone trying to be funny who isn't funny. You know, like that's where cringe happens, when somebody's trying really hard and it just doesn't land. Like my videos are a perfect example. You know, it's just, yeah, if you try too hard, sometimes it makes it way worse than if you just didn't try at all.
He has the biggest balls I've ever seen of any game character.
He has the best off assortment of weapons you've ever seen.
Frank's just an kicking, talking, bullshit mother.
We're really excited to bring Frank West back. More ways to kill him, more combo vehicles.
What in the
We brought back our favorite character, Frank, and we still maintain what was really core to Dead Rising. I think you guys are gonna love it.
We have a couple of fine gentlemen from Capcom Vancouver, from the Dead Rising 4 team. Joe Nichols, studio director. Nice to meet you,
Thank you
sir.
very much.
And Bryce Cochran, the executive producer on the game. Guys, thanks for coming.
Game makers everywhere think they know what they want to make all the time. And it isn't until you get in front of normal human beings where they start playing the game and you see what they do. And they just...
This is an important point to just take in. So Joe Nichols, again, these guys are probably very, very nice people. Nobody's doubting that. Nobody should bully them. Like they're just doing the best that they know how to do. Their previous work before Dead Rising 4, his was Connect Joyride, Connect Sports Season 2, Joyride Turbo, and then Bryce, he worked at 343, worked on Halo, EA Sports, and FIFA. None of them had experience with Dead Rising. None of them had ever made a game like this before. And I think you can kind of tell because these games are kind of pop culture. They're trying to go for a very broad, generic audience. You know, EA Sports and FIFA, yeah, those can be very broad and generic and they'll do better than if they were more niche. Same with like Connect Joyride or Sports or Joyride Turbo and stuff like that. Those games don't need to be super hella grounded or anything or have really unique takes. And so it just seems like an odd choice to give these guys the Dead Rising sequel, you know? Seems like a bold choice.
want to mess stuff up. They just want to go around and knock stuff around. They want to blow things up. They want to do stupid things in the game. And so it's our mission to create stupidity tools for the user.
So do you guys, do you task the team with going back and playing Dead Rising 1, 2, 3, just 3, all of them, 1? Like, is there one you kind of want to, of the 3 games, is there one in particular you want to kind of point the team to with this game?
Great question. If you're making a sequel, you would think they would encourage you to like do some research on what you're making a sequel to, right? You would think, right?
To say let's kind of look more here and build off this.
For us, I think we were really looking at our roots and going back to 1. But
that's the correct answer, by the way.
Oh,
yes.
great.
Why are you kicking me?
But 1, we really wanted to go back to our roots.
Yeah.
We were bringing Frank back. It's the 10th anniversary, and we really wanted to recapture the original magic and bring it up to the level the game systems can do now.
So how important is going to be the like one big thing about Dead Rising is you see a lot of like people you have to go save and join your party. Are we going to see more of that in this one?
Yep, and it's better. I mean, it's not, I'm making the perfect game, right? It's better because before you'd help a survivor and they go, thanks. You just take off. It's like, well, that was worth it.
Yeah.
Now, when you help survivors, they drop loot.
Oh,
they
wow,
drop
okay.
stuff for you, and sometimes it's amazing stuff. Sometimes they have a combo weapon in their jacket. In terms of the food, we've streamlined that too, because we've done it where you can go, you pick up the food and instantly put it into a separate inventory.
Oh,
and then you have all your little crosses on the bottom.
Yeah.
And then when you need to hit food, down on the D-pad, bam, fill it up. You still see the animation of doing it, but you don't have to go and spend time to prepare the food.
Oh, man.
Because we found people really didn't like that.
It's not actually fun rummaging through your backpack trying to find a cheeseburger while you're trying to save humanity while zombies are attacking you. You want that part to be fast.
Also, the psychos are different this time around. You don't call them psychos anymore, right?
Yeah, you know what? The last game, and working with our partners at Microsoft, making sure that that we were listening to what people were saying. You always want to make sure that the characters feel like they belong in the world, and because we spent so much more time working on the story in this game, we wanted all of these psychos, characters, what do you want to call them, to feel like they lived in the world and not be placed in there because it's a video game.
Bring it, weirdo!
Similar to the psychopath.
Like, what was the point of that? So like a lot of this, you can see that they probably did some surveys of people that maybe didn't have a lot of experience with Dead Rising, and those people were like, oh yeah, I like to be able to just press down on the D-pad and heal. I like quick health packs. So they were like, okay, yeah, we'll streamline that. But that's part of like the identity of Dead Rising, is that it's not really supposed to be easy to just quickly pop health packs while you're running through hordes of zombies. It should be a little bit more involved. And that's kind of what those inventory systems are meant to simulate, is like rummaging through your bag as you're running away from zombies. It shouldn't be just a single press to just inject yourself with some sort of healing. It should be a little more involved. Furthermore, having to like mix things or cook things for better healing, that's one of those activities that can encourage you to engage with the game world much more frequently and in much more depth. Whereas when you just pick up a bag of chips and you pop it and it heals you for 20% of your health bar, there's no interactivity there. There's no reason to go look around for restaurants in the mall or wherever you are to cook up some food to make it heal you better. There's just no reason to do any of that. So they're finding ways to streamline it, but as part of that, they're finding ways to remove activities for the player and interactivity between the player and the world. And so it just makes everything feel really inconsequential. And then with this, the swapping of psychopaths for maniacs, they say it's because they wanted to make the characters feel more grounded and like they actually lived in the world. But like, you're still fighting an evil Santa, a pirate captain, like you're still doing all of that stuff. None of that's actually changed. It just seems like a change for the sake of changing stuff. Like, I just don't understand why they did that.
Of the previous Dead Rising games, the Maniacs are tough survivors who went nuts during the outbreak. They're optional encounters you'll find in the game, and you'll need to find some clues before you can fight them. But once you do, prepare yourself for a battle. These deranged survivors have minions and lots of health. You'll need every advantage you can get in this fight.
One of the
yeah, no narration or unique personality. That is one thing, like in the original Dead Rising game, for example, the psychos are like, they have kind of heartbreaking stories, a lot of them. And you almost feel bad for killing them in some cases. It's kind of fascinating how it worked. But in this case, it just seems like they wanted to do weird, wacky boss fights that were optional. And they didn't want to be bothered with going and adding any sort of interesting story element or anything like that into it. Yeah, Dead Rising 4 wasn't just bad or disappointing. Dead Rising 4 was abysmal. It was embarrassing. The biggest mistake of the Dead Rising series was, after the first one, Capcom shoving it off to Western developers. Well, it just seems like they really lost sight of why people liked it, you know?
And lots of health. You'll need every advantage you can get in this fight.
One of the complaints people have online is the voice actor.
Yep.
The voice changed. Why?
So, you know what, we did a lot of research, and we wanted to make Frank a little bit more mature. Because like I said, Frank's in his 50s now. And so we did a lot of casting, and I do want to say that TJ was great. I mean, TJ, he did a great job for Frank, and we love the work that he did for us. But talking to a lot of the fans, they wanted to see where Frank was going to go, and how was he going to mature, and how was his story going to change. And so we went with someone new, and everyone that plays the game loves what Frank has become. They love his dialogue. The chemistry between Frank and all the new people and survivors is amazing, because Frank's had a pretty lousy life, and the things that he says in this game are amazing.
We're seeing the not renewing voice actors thing. I get why some people could get really upset by it. I'm more like, I don't think that's, for a game like this, as crazy important, mostly because usually voice actors not being renewed has to do with like contractual BS, or like the actor wanted more money than they were willing to pay out, so they had to find somebody new because they just couldn't really justify it, you know? And so sometimes it's not as simple as just, oh, they just wanted to change it for the sake of changing it. Maybe that is what happened here, as he's kind of alluding to in his answer, but it could also be that they just were like, yeah, we couldn't meet in the middle on pricing and how much he was going to make, so we just went another direction. But he's not going to talk about that, because last thing you want to do when you're framing your game as really good is like, yeah, well, we were budgetarily limited, so we just couldn't do it. You know, but it's a weird excuse. It's a weird excuse to just be like, yeah, we wanted to show how he matured while he's still making like teenager jokes about everything.
Nighttime gameplay here has that element of the sort of zombies get fast at night. Has that?
Oh yeah, duh. Question: at night, are zombies still hyper aggressive?
Nighttime gameplay here has that element of the sort of zombies get fast at night. Has that been sort of removed in relation to these fresh zombies?
Yes, yeah. They do like to stay in the shadows. They like to stay in the side streets, but yeah, we're not having them be more aggressive at night. They're just always there and always on you.
Yeah.
In this game, in 4, are we going to see...
Like, again, they just are removing any variables or nuance to the game. You know, like, oh, can you cook food to make it heal you more? Are you going to make juggling the inventory a mechanic you have to think about when you're exploring the open world? So maybe you arrange your inventory in a certain way so that it's more effective when you're running away from zombies trying to heal quickly. Are those things that players have to consider? Are zombies more aggressive at night, as is kind of the standard trope? Turns out no, they've just stripped it all out. It's just super dumbed down.
You know, the same traditional like day and night cycles and like a hard day limit for when you have to be finished with the game?
No. So we've taken the time away.
Oh, wow.
Because we had a lot of... So what we did, we kept time in one place and we got rid of it in another. Because this game has got so much more side content and stuff to explore and find, we did a lot of testing, and we found that people could never complete the stuff in the amount of time, and then we had to give you so much time to do it, the time meant nothing.
One of the, you know...
This is one thing that, like, is just genuinely baffling. It's like, again, it really feels like they never played the base game. Because in the base game, yes, there's a time limit, but you don't have to follow in the time limit. Like, if you say screw it and you don't finish the main story, or you fail an objective, or a survivor dies and the story ends, okay, you just get to go explore them all. Do all the side content you wanted to do. And maybe you make a new save and you go through the main story after that. Like, it's okay to do multiple runs to see everything the game has to offer. But again, you can just see, like, they started with the presumption that you should be able to get through everything in the game, 100% completion run, on your first run. And so we don't want any time limits or anything. But part of the fun thing with the time limits is it kept the player on pace. It kept them immersed in the world, because it was like, I can't just dilly-dally and do whatever I want. I need to go meet with this person by 6 a.m. Otherwise, they'll get swarmed by zombies and the story's over. Like, it keeps you in the world much more. And they just decided not to do that. It's why I've honestly been kind of excited at the prospect of Far Cry 7, which is rumored to be using a similar mechanic as the original Dead Rising, with a timed main story quest where you have to complete certain objectives within a certain amount of real world time, which is kind of cool. A little bit different. I think it does well for motivating players.
Wonderfully unique things about the first game was the time
Oh yeah, and a timed solo DLC will be available in the season pass only. Yeah, so they took the thing people liked and then they stripped it out, saying people didn't actually like it, but we will sell it to you for extra on the side. I thought people didn't like it though. Yeah, but you can buy it separate.
Constraints and whatnot, and obviously Zombrex in the second game. Right. A lot of that was sort of like left by the wayside. I mean, there was elements of it in 3. Are you going to reintroduce some of that into Dead Rising 4?
We're not doing time elements in this right now, and there is no cure currently in this game.
Right.
We wanted to really allow players to explore our world more than they've been able to in the past. With the time element in there, you weren't able to go into every store and look everywhere.
We do a lot of user research. We send a ton of research out, and we do a lot of Q&A with people, and we found out that people, it was okay. Some people really liked it, and more people didn't like it because they wanted to be able to go, you know what? You ended my game, and I was so close, and I don't want to have to go do that all again. Right. You know, they didn't want to have that pressure. And so what we wanted to do is we really wanted to make sure the world was really open, lots of side missions, lots of stuff to discover, and let people, it's still the same Dead Rising, but we've taken some stuff away and added a ton more.
I think sometimes asking people what they want is not actually useful, because I think a lot of people don't know what they want. And when you are trying to force them to answer you with what they do want or what they like and don't like, they might not be able to put it into words. You know, I truly believe if you did a mass survey anonymously of like Elden Ring and you sent that out for previews and stuff, and just your average casual gamer tried to play Elden Ring, you'd get a lot of feedback that it was too difficult. The bosses spammed to text too much. The AoEs were too big, and the hitboxes were kind of too precise. I kind of wish that they were easier to hit. Enemies were easier to hit. You'd go through all these survey questions, and the average casual gamer would give you a lot of feedback that would end up dumbing down Elden Ring to the point where it's just boring. Like it would be so generic, it'd be uninteresting in every way. And I think that this is another example of that sort of game design by committee really doing a lot of damage, because I think by asking a lot of those people, hey, do you like the time constraints? Should we get rid of the time constraints? They're like, actually, yeah, get rid of the time constraints because I don't like having constraints on my time. When in reality, that was one of the things that helped players that were into these types of games get through it and stay immersed all the way through. You know, sometimes I think you can ask too many questions, and there is something to be said for like analysis paralysis, and then also having a visionary work on the game. A director that is like, no, the time constraint is part of the game's identity. That's what we're doing. Just like Miyazaki, the difficulty is part of the game's identity. We're not getting rid of it. No matter how many people in surveys complain about it, no matter how many people mass downvote the game on Steam or this or that, doesn't matter. We're sticking to our guns because that's what we do. We make our piece of art, whether people love it or not, and we just trust that it will connect with some people. And sure enough, it does. But with something like this is just designed by surveys and spreadsheets, and it shows.
We also really want to encourage killing zombies. Right. Yeah, and if you're under a time constraint, and you see that big group of zombies, and you're like, oh, I want to do it, but sometimes you can't. We want to let the players just go to town on as many zombies as possible.
Always ends up being a thing for me where I'm like, I'm running low on time, and I'm like, I've got 2 survivors, like I got to pick one of the 2, and it's like, well, not getting a perfect run this time, all right.
Yeah.
Like,
and then people say, oh, I could just go play it again.
Yeah.
People don't want to play it again to get that one other thing.
Yeah.
Well, that should be telling if people are playing your game and saying, I don't want to have to keep playing this to get another thing. If your game is good, people should just want to keep playing it indefinitely, right? Like if the game is good, they can't get enough. So if people are saying, yeah, I don't want to play any more of this, I just want to be done with it. maybe that's a red flag you should have noticed.
So that's cool. I appreciate that you're listening to feedback from the gamers.
Yeah, you know what, we get a lot of feedback. Of course, we can't respond to everything, but we really try to at least acknowledge that. We get a lot of it in, and it's important because the people who play our games, they're who we're making the game for. Mm-hmm. So we have to please the most people that we can.
Yeah.
We will try any crazy idea as long as it's going to be fun, right? We would only knock down something if it's going to be too diehard, too intense.
We really wanted to focus on making sure that we could give fans more of what they were asking for, and they all wanted more and more and more zombies. And we would try to tailor the experience for as wide an audience as possible.
Right, does that mean the same save system from the previous game is going to be the same?
No.
Oh yeah, in the original games, you had to go to bathrooms to save, so it was this kind of thing of stress, almost like in a Souls-like game where you're going and you have to find the bonfires or the sites of grace or whatever to save, and it creates this added level of stress and pressure that I got to get past this wave of zombies. High stakes, because I've got this great stuff, I don't want to die and have to go all the way back to that previous save. Oh, okay, I'm sweating bullets, but I'm going to do it. That's part of what made these games so engaging, is that there was that stress, there was that anxiety of overcoming those challenges, and they just stripped it all out here.
No, actually, you don't have to go to the bathroom to save, kind of thing. You know, we've made stuff like that a little bit easier.
Will we see a return of like the classic multiple endings with Dead Rising? You know, depending on what you do.
We're keeping mum on that.
Okay.
We're going back to our roots. We brought back Frank West, which is a huge fan favorite, and our fans have been asking us to bring him back. And we're also going back to the roots.
We're big fans of the game ourselves at the studio.
You can't say that you're going back to your roots while changing everything about the roots. Like, we went back to our roots and then tore the roots out of the ground and put a new pretty bush in there. Like, that's just not how that works.
And so we wanted to make sure that we're honoring Dead Rising and where it comes from.
It is the 10th year anniversary of our game, and we wanted to go back to our roots.
Dead Rising 4 is better, it's faster, it looks amazing. We have more zombies, more ways to kill them, more combo vehicles, a whole new mystery to solve. We brought back our favorite character, Frank, and we still maintain what was really core to Dead Rising. I think fans are gonna love it.
Something is horribly wrong in the small town of Willamette. The mall has become the breeding ground of unspeakable mayhem. As veteran photojournalist Frank West, you suspect a terrifying conspiracy of epic proportions. You have 72 hours to uncover the story of a lifetime.
Dude, I love it.
The only way to survive is to grab whatever you can get your hands on.
Listen, don't forget to come back for me. As long as you're not dead, Fred. It's Frank. Frank West. Remember that name, because the whole world's gonna know it in 3 days.
Carlito! Did I remember these fights? Oh, the butcher, yeah.
Did you just say zombies? Take a look out there. If those ain't zombies, what would you call
You kill NPCs and fail the story as a result? Hey, just keep going. But like that again, it's like when they say, yeah, people didn't like the time limits because then they couldn't do what they wanted to do. It's like, well, you could. Like, did they not play the game? I get the impression that they never actually played the game, that they were criticizing, saying that they wanted to change it. All the while saying they're returning to their roots. They're going back to the roots of the franchise, and then they just didn't at all. But this is getting a remaster. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, that.
Yeah, it's just a restaurant. It's a nice restaurant. But it always has been there.
Games have to evolve.
Right.
You can't just keep serving up the same burger year after year after year. You have to put new things out for people. And I think that's what we've done with Dead Rising. We've focused on the stuff that people love. We've added some new stuff, and we've improved some stuff.
Now, how do you think that went? How do you think that went? Do you think it was received really well? Do you think people got super stoked on it? I believe it's the technical term. IGN, Xbox Addict, Atomics, Gaming Age, Hobby, Level Up, IGN. Let's see what they said at the time. Games Radar, also an 8 out of 10. What are some of the bad ones? Let's see. Do we recognize any of these? Games Beat, we could pull that up. Slant, Polygon. Oh, Polygon always has funny reviews. Let's see. Let's see what they got. So they go through Time to Kill. Biggest change makes to the traditional Dead Rising formula is removal of the countdown timer that has forced you to rush through the objectives and make tough calls to bypass potentially interesting side quests, negating that sense of urgency earlier games did well. But I found I didn't miss it much because there's too much to see and do and squish to be satisfied by just 72 in-game hours as we had on the original. There's an exhausting number of collectibles and weapon blueprints to find, side mysteries to uncover and solve through investigations, and hidden graffiti art to photograph. Now you're free to meander, exploring, get lost in the larger, denser version of Willamette. They liked the removal. They liked it. Oh, God. Yeah, it was also super buggy. Games Radar, 4 stars out of 5. Frank West is the charming anti-hero you can't help but love. The Willamette Memorial Megaplex is an exciting labyrinth to explore. The removal of the timer means you can have fun at your own pace. The majority of Willamette is sleepy, uninspiring blur. The story lacks a satisfying villain, and too many objectives turn into retreads of the same old routes. Just kind of samey. Okay, okay. What did Venture Beat say? Dead Rising 4 is a mind-numbing slog despite its near-endless array of weapons. It just had too much stuff. Dead Rising 4 is like a digital stress ball. It can be a cathartic to let loose and kill thousands of zombies whenever you want, but it doesn't have much else going for it, even with the charming Christmas setting and a compelling multiplayer mode. If you're a diehard Dead Rising fan, you might get more out of the story than I did. Like the characters mentioned earlier, the narrative is not very interesting. It mostly served as a way to push me to different parts of the map. Without the technical oddities, Dead Rising 4 is a mediocre experience, but I have to dock it down a few more points just for that baffling performance in the last mission. What's the... Yeah, frustrating bugs. It can render thousands of zombies on screen without a hitch, but it does have a few nagging issues. Sometimes the button prompts that let you know when you can open a door or pick up a weapon disappear, and the only way I got around that was by walking away for a few seconds and coming back to the object. Every once in a while, human survivors popped up in the middle of a big horde, and that made it almost impossible to rescue them. Actually, I'm not sure if that counts as a bug, but it was still annoying because saving people helps you level up emergency shelters, which in turn give you more items you can buy from their vendors. Dead Rising 4 also crashed twice, once in single player mode and once during a multiplayer match, abruptly sending me back to the Xbox One's dashboard. But the most egregious hiccup was during the last mission, which was missing half of its dialogue and subtitles. The characters still mouthed the words, but nothing came out. The awkward silence ruined one of Dead Rising 4's few emotional moments. I reached out to Microsoft to see if an upcoming patch will address these problems, and I'll update this if I hear back. Did they ever respond? Doesn't look like it. Okay, and Polygon, what did they say? They gave it an 8 as well. This also came out at a time when like doing multiplayer stuff was just such a, like immediately, it was coming out at the perfect time for people to just rage about it. It was like minus 1 to the score if for players specifically, if they were doing that. Throughout my time with Dead Rising 4, I never hit a show-stopping bug that halted my progress in the game, but I did see some occasional weirdness. At one point, Maniac side mission wouldn't complete, and character models occasionally got stuck on vehicles or other geometry. A number of reviewers at other sites also reported more serious issue with the game, including severe glitches and freezing in the final case. I didn't encounter that problem, but it warrants caution, and I'll be checking forums and other venues to see if this was a persistent thing or a limited event. With that in mind, consider this review provisional until we can determine more about the launch state of the game. That's interesting that they half announce it or half review it, and they're like, yeah, we'll update it later if it's bad. What else have they done? Successor, the Coalition. Oh, as Capcom Vancouver, they were working on Knights of Aegis and Dead Rising 5. Dead Rising 5 and Capcom Vancouver's shuttering attributable to executive and communication issues. Independent games journalist Liam Robertson, under the Did You Know gaming brand and his own series of game history secrets, just dropped a huge report on the events leading to Capcom Vancouver's closure. According to the report, Capcom Vancouver had several issues since Dead Rising 2, which led a lot of people, which led to a lot of problems through Dead Rising 3. This led to Dead Rising 5 starting development alongside 4 with a totally new team of developers brought in for fresh ideas. The project even moved from Capcom's Forge engine to Unreal Engine 4, which led to significant structural changes compared to the previous games. What the team started with was a smaller game set between Dead Rising 2 and 3, which would have allowed 2 players to enjoy co-op with the returning Chuck and Katie Green. Leadership ended up changing drastically over a few years, with the scope changing to something more open world and Ubisoft-like, then leaping back in the opposite direction towards Dark Souls, okay? As that version of Dead Rising 5 development progressed, Capcom back in Japan wasn't okay with such a drastic shift, and that was that. While figuring out what to do next, the decision was made to cut their losses, and the Vancouver office was shut down following a huge round of layoffs. Oof. Woof. Oh, man. Yeah, trying to go from small and more focused to big Ubisoft-like, and then shifting back towards Dark Souls for that. That doesn't sound like it would work that well. Apparently it didn't, because they shut the studio down. Okay, well, that's why we haven't gotten another one. But maybe with the announcement of a remaster, a big remaster that they're doing, maybe we see a reveal of, like, maybe sequels are going to come. Maybe we're going to see something like that happen, potentially, if this does well. That'd be my hope. I mean, honestly, that was my hope with L.A. Noire. Because L.A. Noire, they announced that frickin' remaster, but that was a while ago. So L.A. Noire remastered. That was like, what, 2020? I want to say? Whenever that came out, I was hoping that it would be better received and that we would then see like an announcement of a big re-release or of a remake or of a sequel or something, but it doesn't seem like that is going to happen. Seems like they've been sitting on it, and we're not going to see it, which is a bummer because I love L.A. Noire. But maybe we're going to get more luck with the freaking Dead Rising thing. Maybe we get another revamp of that franchise. It was November of 2017. Oh, dude. It became so weirdly directionless. It makes no sense since the concept was perfect from game one. You can tell during the discussions of Dead Rising 4 that the directors and producers, they were like, well, we have to change stuff. We have to add something, and you can't just tread water forever. And so I think that was some of the feedback from Dead Rising 3, is that they didn't feel like enough was really shifted and changed other than like graphical improvements. So they were like, okay, let's really change some stuff. But I think what they basically ended up doing was, instead of adding new interesting mechanics, they just cut away the interesting mechanics and replaced them with really generic stuff. Like getting rid of the timer. I can understand the argument for why they thought that was a good idea, but it doesn't follow, you know, like it doesn't follow necessarily that will make the game better. Evolving a concept versus just changing it is a whole different thing. Shame they couldn't enhance it. Yeah, well, and when you boil it down, it's like, what are you changing that adds to this? Like what is improving based on these changes you're making? And it's like, well, players can play through the whole thing without having to worry about time limits. Okay. You could say that that's like trying to attempt a positive change. Okay. Then you could shift it and be like, just more content is better and is an improvement. I'm like struggling to find ways that you could say that Dead Rising 4 was like a major improvement, because pretty much every aspect of it just seems like a downgrade, you know? He took my thing.